Hey friends, Liz here to invite you to check out our Patreon. That's where we publish extra episodes every other week, and that's also where we will continue any series we're reading. So if you liked our coverage of ACOTAR, Guild, High Mountain Court, or Fourth Wing, check out our Patreon to continue those series along with us. We also let you know what we're reading each month in advance in case you want to read along with us too. There might be a few other surprises throughout the year for our patrons as well. You can get all of this for just $3 a month, so check it out and we would really appreciate the support. Anyway, on to today's episode.
Welcome to Your Safe Space, the podcast your partner, friends, parents, whoever thinks is dirty. Don't have time to read books? Want to understand the jokes in the TikToks? We got you, fam. We're the Spice Traders, and we deal in spicy books. I'm Katie, and I need it to make sense.
I'm Liz, and I'm hypercritical. As always, we start every episode with 3 things. The first is a generic trigger warning. You can find specific triggers for this book in our show notes, so please check those out. Also, we do use foul language and talk a lot about sex. If you have sensitivity to any of this, please give this episode a skip.
Secondly, we talk about books. The whole book, nothing but the book, so help me goddess. If you plan to read this book and don't want something spoiled right now, don't listen to this episode.
Lastly, we acknowledge that a good book can hit you at the wrong time. The views expressed in our discussion are our opinion, and we absolutely don't want to diminish the work and the talent of the authors in our community. That said, we have some notes.
All right, girl, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about God of Moonlight and Stardust by Mina Brower. This was published in 2024, and it is the first in an ongoing series, the Daughters of Chaos series. Currently with 2 books, but I believe it's going to be a trilogy.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure about that.
I think so, based on what Goodreads says and what her website says. I think it says trilogy.
Okay, cool.
And the 3rd book is coming out in 2026.
Okay, cool. I like that. Look, if nothing else, I appreciate a queen who does like quick publishes, right? 3 books in 3 years. I appreciate you.
I appreciate that because the 2nd book is out.
Yes,
as
it is.
Said. Yeah. This book is 328 pages long, and that's a midi. I gotta say, so we're coming off of Glint and Vicious Darling, and Vicious Darling is a long book that felt really short. This is a relatively short book. It's a midi, but it feels like I thought there were a lot more pages in this book.
Yeah, I think it's because the pacing is a little bit slow. So I feel you. I was a little bit shocked to be like, oh, it's only 328 pages, but I think that's why.
That makes sense. So I do have to call this out because we've mentioned this in other episodes and it's just something we talk about. This is another book that falls into the a blank of blank and blank category. And I just need to know why people do that. I was talking to my partner about it and he's like, well, if you use that formula of blank and blank and blank, and it automatically makes you think of other books in that formula, such as A Court of Thorns and Roses, you kind of automatically link those in your head,
sure,
which makes sense. But I don't know if that's intentional. I just don't want to read any more blanks of blanks and blanks. They're too long.
Well,
I don't like it.
It's very formulaic. Like it strikes me as like, it gives me the same kind of like scent memory for like when in the 90s you would walk by the like book section in the grocery store and it would just be like a wall of like Western romances with like Fabio on the cover, and it didn't fucking matter what the title was. You just knew what you were getting into because that's the cover of the book.
Yeah, and that's what this structure of a title gives for me. We're like, okay, it's gonna be romantasy.
Yeah, it's very formulaic. I can see that point. I just wonder like what books would be titled if we didn't have that formula.
I know. And I don't know if it really started with ACOTAR or if that's just my placement for it. I don't know. And I'm not like dissing her title. It's a beautiful title. I have to call it out because there's just so many of them.
I know. Well, and so it's this one is a blank of blank and blank, and then book 2 is also a blank of blank and blank. So it's just continuing the theme.
Yeah. I was trying to make it do like, so we've ACOTAR, this would be Agamas.
Yeah, Agamas.
Which is nice. Agamass. So anyway,
Oh, book 2, really quick, is Ahodar.
Ahodar. That's fun.
Okay, so the new thing that we're going to do is just make acronyms out of a blank of blanks.
We have to. I think we have to. It's the only thing to do. So this is Agamass.
Agamass.
And so anyway, I do like the cover, though I have to be honest, I'm only half through this book. And maybe you can blame my reading abilities. I don't know what the snake symbolizes, but anyway, we have a snake, we have a desert background, and we have stars and the moon in the back with kind of a geometric framing of the title. I'm trying to think of what that is. Kind of that, there's a word for that sort of geometric shape, like divine geometric. It doesn't matter. I do like the cover. The snake is a little clip arty for me, and I'm not really sure why the snake is here, because either I missed that or I haven't read that far yet. But I don't find the cover egregious. I think it's pretty. It does give me the romantasy vibes. I don't hate it.
Yeah. I really like the cover. I also have questions about where the snake comes through. I've finished the book, but it might be symbolism that gets revealed in book 2. I don't know. But it's very pretty.
It does feel like it would go with the other books on my shelf in the coloring and the romantasy and those vibes. Curious about the snake. Maybe we should ask her that, which we'll talk about asking her why I said that in a little bit. Speaking of, I'm going to turn it over to you. I made that real awkward. You can leave all of this in.
Okay, cool. I'm probably going to. Anyway, so we'll just get into it because Liz brought it up, but this is one of the first books that we are interviewing the author for. So we are going to cover this book in 2 parts, and then we're going to drop our interview after we drop our coverage. And so that will be in the first week of August. So it's first time for us. I'm very excited. So stay tuned for that if it's your jam.
I'm super excited about that.
Me too. Also be kind because this is our first time. Anyway, so this book is on Kindle Unlimited, which is great. We get a couple of things before we get into the book itself. We get a beautiful dedication that says, quote, "To anyone who has felt like they are a burden to love," end quote.
I did love that. I was like, oh, girl.
We get a trigger warning, which will be included in our show notes, so do take a look at those. And then we just kind of get into it. We don't get a map, which is honestly fine, because I think in this context it would hurt and like just add to the confusion of kind of where things are and how the world works, but we'll get into that as we get into the story.
I did want to say, we do get this introduction before the triggers that basically gives like a TLDR background of the world, like saying that it's a fictional universe. We don't live on Earth anymore. This is set in the future. Religion is banned. And it kind of gives us this like kind of breakdown of the world we're in, which I found really interesting as an introduction. But I was wondering like, and I still don't have a great answer to this, but if I hadn't read this introduction, would I have gotten that information in the book? And I do think yes. In which case, I don't know why you gave me this introduction. It's like you're telling me the things before you're going to tell me the things.
Yeah, I think that's a theme for both the introduction and what is effectively a prologue, right? We get a lot of like upfront information that I think is just trying to overly communicate what it is that we're about to read and where we are. And I'm with you. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I think for the most part, the information that we get in the introduction, we would have gotten in the book. And so it feels a little bit weird that it's there, because introductions are typically like a note to the or from the author, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily about the book, but anyway.
So I was a little curious about that.
So before we get into the prologue, I do want to say again that this is part 1 of 2. And so we're going to be covering chapters 1 through 17. So standard disclaimer, if you haven't read the book and you don't want anything spoiled, then you should read the book first before listening to this episode.
I also feel like just a tertiary disclaimer. We're both kind of sick. So any stray coughs or sniffles that make it into this episode, sorry.
deeply apologize. Yeah, I've been sick for about 15 days, so I'm over it.
You've been sick for 1,000 years. I've only been sick for a week, but my sickness didn't start with a cough, but it like has ended with a cough, and it's super annoying.
Yeah. It's weird because I feel like you and every single other person that I know have gotten this thing. Like even people that don't live, I mean, obviously we don't live in the same spot, but like I know this woman who traveled to like a different country and picked it up. I know a person who lives in a completely different city on the other side of the country who, like, it's just strange. I think it's just the season of sickness.
'Tis the season,
I guess. So, like I mentioned, we get what is effectively, I think, a prologue because it tells us about something that happened in the past amongst the gods of this world. And this is called the legend of Arios and Amre. And we learned that these two are chief gods of something called a celestial enclave. And Arios is the god of the sun and Amre is the god of darkness. So they're polar opposites. Think of it as like a creator and a destruction god. So these two ended up going into war, and Amre loses this war. And as a result, he's exiled to a planet, a physical planet, filled with lawless criminals. And this was meant to be a punishment for him. But he didn't take it as a punishment. He used it to his advantage. And after a while, Arios saw that Amre was gaining favor with this planet. And so he set out with the rest of the gods of the Celestial Enclave to destroy Amre's fun. But in his exile, Amre did two things. He had a daughter, so he had a biological daughter, and then he also adopted a son. So at the end of this, we get this information, quote, "But all would not fare well for Amre, the feared wielder of chaos, for his daughter would betray him by pledging loyalty to his enemies. This is her story," end quote. And I swear to God, the only thing that I heard at the end of this intro was the Law and Order SVU intro, quote, "These are their stories." Like
that's all I heard too. I needed the like ba-bump.
I know. The gavel dong dong.
Yes. Although I did just clock something that we know that our main character is the daughter of Amre. But this trilogy is called Daughters of Chaos. Who are the other daughters?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know.
Because it's not Daughter of Chaos. But we haven't been introduced to anyone who would fill that role. At least that we've been told would fill that role. So I'm curious.
Yeah. The plot thickens, I guess.
Yeah.
It would be very weird if her adopted brother turned out to be an adopted sister.
I mean, we don't know how he identifies. We do.
We do. Yeah, we do.
There's other children of gods? I don't know. It's just something I noticed just now.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, it's interesting in this prologue because not only does it have the Law and Order SVU parallels for me, but it also, going back to what you were saying, like it tells you what you're about to read before. Like I feel like I'm getting into like a 5-paragraph essay almost.
Yeah,
but like
it feels like it does that thing where the author, and we'll talk about this maybe in our interview if we have time, but it kind of gives me that feeling that the author doesn't trust her reader to understand it. It's like, you keep telling me what you're going to tell me, but I'll get it. I promise I'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's interesting in the context too of like, we will get there very soon, but our protagonist, the daughter of Amre, her name's Rena, and that's our main character. And she's studying what is essentially the outcome of this war, right? And so like it's an interesting choice to give us this information separately and not make it come about as a result of her studies, for example.
Yeah, because this is a spoiler and we'll get to it, but she doesn't know this yet. And it would be so fascinating if she had figured out her history through her dissertation.
Wow, what a mindfuck, right?
Yeah.
So we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves.
Happens. Yeah.
But when we get past this bit of a prologue, we meet Rena Strongborn, who is our protagonist, and she lives on a planet called Andorra. And we learn through the course of part 1 that there was this mass exodus of humanity from the Milky Way galaxy, and now they're living in Andromeda. And so she lives on Andorra, which is described as a desert urban planet. But we don't, unfortunately, get a whole lot of fleshing out of that world. I wish we would see a little bit more of that.
Me too.
So Rena tells us several times that she's a doctoral student, and she's studying the ancient weapons from a planet called Zor, so Xhor. And Zor obviously doesn't exist anymore, which is why she's studying it kind of like in an archaeological fashion. But we see Rena as she's heading to the administration building of her campus with one of her friends, Helena, to protest the new administration. We learn that some obscure rich art dude named Hector Aramis has taken over the school and like ousted a lot of their professors, including Rena's own doctoral chair, which is a problem for her because she was supposed to do her defense and graduated, and now that's called into jeopardy because she doesn't have the same advisor.
Which is a bit of a problem. I have a question. Does Zor not exist anymore, or does no one live there? Because isn't she planning on going there?
No, so we learned that Zor, it's essentially like Rome and ancient Rome. So Rome is built on top of ancient Rome. New Zor is built on ancient Zor.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's a good question, though, because it's a little bit unclear based on information we learned in part 2.
Because I was like, but she's going there.
Yeah, and then she's all butthurt that she's going to a different place, but it turns out we learn later that they're maybe next door to each other. I don't know. We'll get there.
That's a little confusing. Anyway, sorry, I had to call it out because sometimes I don't read things very closely. This happened in this book a few times for me.
Yeah. So we learned that Rena has magic and that this feels like electricity underneath her skin when it manifests. But she tries not to make it manifest because she has bad memories associated with it, specifically childhood trauma created by someone in her childhood who taught her how to use it. But another reason that she doesn't like to use her magic is because she feels like it can only be used for destructive purposes because it only comes out when she's angry. So it's not like she can, heal people or make flowers, right? It's just this like angry burst of electricity when her magic manifests.
Also, we get a fun fact that like magic is forbidden. And if you are caught using magic, you go get quote unquote reprogrammed. Which I have so many questions about, considering how many people on this planet use magic.
I know. Like, Liz mentioned a little bit in the introduction, but like the whole science is law thing, like outlaws magic, right? And so the ruling body is just like really uptight about that, right? But we don't really see a lot of the consequences of that. Like we see a lot of the decisions that are made at the beginning of this book have to do with the fact that Rena is magical and they're trying to protect her from being reprogrammed from the council. But like, we don't even see as much of as like a police officer, right? Like this is just some nameless, faceless, like shapeless threat in the distance, right? I wish that was made a little bit more real because to your point, we're about to see like 4 motherfuckers use magic in public.
Yeah. And okay, I'm going to reference a book that I know you haven't read because it's horror, but hopefully my reference will still make sense. Whenever I got the term, we get it a couple times, reprogrammed, and I put it in quotes because I think it's in quotes in the book. It's like this vague threat where we're not really told what reprogramming means, but it's something scary. There's this book I read called Hex. The author's first name is Thomas. The last name is like Oldevalt. I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong. I think he's Dutch. I could be wrong. The book is great if you like scary things. But the characters are threatened with this prison place called Doodletown. And this reprogramming thing just gave me the same vibe as Doodletown, where it's like you're giving me this thing that I know is supposed to be scary, but you're using this word that I have no fear of. Like reprogramming just sounds like you're getting bugs out of a machine, which this is a technical world and society, but we also don't get a lot of that like technology forward vibe. So it just kind of confused me.
Yeah. Like, do they force feed you some alien creature that like wipes your memories? Do they implant a chip where they can modify and monitor your brainwaves and your thoughts? Do they give you like conversion therapy in modern day? Like what does that actually look like, right?
Yeah. And like, does anyone know? Because maybe no one knows, and that's what the vague threat is, which is kind of the thing with Doodletown. No one really knows what happens there. Like maybe they just kill you.
Yeah, because nobody seems to come out of it, right? So that could be the case.
Yeah. But I just don't know.
Anyway, so Rena's going to this dude's office with her friend Helena, but Helena might as well not even be there because she immediately like gets like starry-eyed and like is silent for the entire interaction. So pretend she's not there. Anyway, so when they get near Aramis's office, Rena feels the telltale sign of magic trying to like soothe both of these people, right? Coming into the office. And when they enter this office, we see another woman with Aramis, and we learn this person's name is Galeen. And this is the person that the magic is coming from. And like we've mentioned, it's interesting because magic is like verboten on the planet. And science is the new religion, blah, blah, blah. So it's like this person is... Aramis is the new headmaster, right? He's a very flashy new headmaster. He had his name put on the building. And your secretary or whatever is just using magic in the wild. Like anybody could be there. Like it just seems like a weird thing to do.
It does. And I think part of this is that it's a little unclear to me if Rena is aware that Galeen is using magic because she herself has magic, or if you can just feel the effects of magic. Like, can Helen feel the magic?
Well, I think Rena makes it pretty clear that Helena can't feel the magic because she's not reacting to it. But
okay,
that brings up a question for me because, like, okay, is it that non-magical people can't feel magic? Therefore, what do all of you magic people have to worry about? Because all of these, like, normies who ostensibly run the council don't fucking know when you're using magic. Or is it that the council also employs people who do magic to catch other magic, like being turncoat bounty hunters, right? Like that is a question that I have that I wish I didn't. Like the book presented me just too much information and now I can't let it go.
Yes, that's the one.
So Rena voices her displeasure at her advisor being let go. And Aramis tells Rena, quote, "Your supervisor was incompetent. He also engaged in an unsavory relationship with a student, a topic which I will not discuss with you," end quote. Which honestly felt like a pretty good excuse to get rid of him to me.
Yeah. Also, I did want to know more purely for myself. Him being incompetent, Rena, did you not know your advisor was incompetent? Like, did you have a good relationship with him, or are you just worried that you have to start over? Because both of those are fair reasons to panic, but him being what sounds like a lech is a really good reason to fire his ass.
It is, especially if he wasn't actually particularly good at his job. But then I wish that she had told us, like, well, yeah, he was kind of incompetent, but I still got to get shit done, right? Because, like, we've all been there.
I was there with, well, I don't know if she listens. I doubt she listens. I was there.
Yeah.
She wasn't incompetent. She was just flaky.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing in a professional setting. Anyway, so it doesn't really matter what we or Aramis think because Rena won't take no for an answer. And her magic comes to the surface because she's so angry, and it ends up making one of the lights in the office go out with a bang. Aramis, Galeen, and Rena all know that this was Rena's fault. And Helena is just too enraptured of Aramis's beauty to, like, notice anything. So Aramis dismisses Rena and Helena. Rena is shaken by the fact that she lost control of her magic. She tells us, quote, "I had run from magic for 7 years, and in a matter of minutes, my mask had slipped." So they leave. And when they do, Rena tells us internally a little bit more about her upbringing. She's an orphan, so she has no idea who her true parents were. We know that her dad is a god, so spoilers. And we learn that her foster mother was absent and also abusive. Specifically, this woman let a mentor into Rena's life to help, like, teach her / control her magic. And he's the one that abused Rena and taught her to use her magic for evil. She tells us, quote, "Death was always the goal," end quote.
Dark.
Real dark.
I was interested in her trauma background. For a fleeting moment, I was like, great, more trauma, because it made me think about that one FMC that was just like locked in a cabinet and was in a child fight club for no fucking reason. Rena's trauma makes sense for the story, and it's fucking dark.
Yeah, I mean, and Fight Club, child Fight Club for no reason.
There was no reason.
No, you're not wrong. It's just really funny. Anyway, back to the story. I appreciated that her backstory made sense because, like, we all know that the foster care system is, like, not great. And it does feel like it's rife with opportunity for somebody like her mentor, who seems to be an agent of her father, like, to take advantage of that situation. So I appreciated that. I just wish that I knew a little bit more about Rena besides the fact that she has this trauma and she's magical.
That's really the thing, because we don't know a lot about her. Like, we get 3 facts. So she has background trauma, she has magic, and that she's a dissertation student. We don't know what she looks like. We don't know how she got to where she is. We don't know why she's deciding to study Azor. We don't know any of those things. We don't know if she still has contact with any family. There's a lot missing on who she is as a person. I don't even know if she has hobbies. Like, I don't know what she likes.
Yeah. So we do get a one-line fixer for the Zor thing, because she just, like, woke up one day and, like, I think maybe read a book. I forget the exact line, but it was, like, very out of the blue because she was intending to study something else and then it didn't feel right. And then she just kind of went this other way, which almost makes me ask more questions than if I didn't know why she went into that, you know?
That's the one.
Yeah. So anyway, this meeting was obviously unsuccessful. And so Rena and Helena decide to go out and blow off some steam. And they do that by going to a tattoo parlor. And Rena says that this makes sense because this is the first time in their friendship that they're going to spend the university break apart. So they're going to get tattoos together. Not matching tattoos, just at the same time. They're going to get tattoos. Which is weird.
That was weird. I don't know. Okay, I was going to say it's kind of cute, but it's weird. I feel like if you and I got tattoos together, they match.
But we also talked about it for 2 fucking years.
Yeah, it seemed very, especially when we'll get into it, but like Rena doesn't want a tattoo at first. Like, she's not even into this idea. It was kind of weird.
Yeah. It's just a very strange thing. And so, like, Helena gets a tattoo. I'm not even sure we understand or get a description of what it is. But then she pressures Rena into getting one as well. And so the tattoo artist that's going to tattoo Rena introduces herself as Itara and convinces Rena to get an intuitive tattoo, which is where, quote, you let your tattoo artist choose a tattoo that best suits you at that moment, end quote. And I'm not a tattoo specialist. I would say that you're closer to one because you have so many. Is that a real thing?
That is a thing that I have heard about, but I think, okay, I'm going to put a huge grain of salt in this because I haven't looked too far into it because it's not something I'm interested in. In my understanding that I have seen, it is a thing, but I think it's a lengthier process than just this, like, I'm going to meditate for 5 seconds around you and then tattoo something on your body. Like, I think there's more of a consultation. You can say no. Because Rena even asks, like, well, what if I don't want it? And Atara's like, sorry. Like, it's more of like, we're going to work together and build this intuitive tattoo that I'm going to draw on a piece of paper and then we can change together if you actually still want it. Not like, I'm going to tattoo this flow of consciousness onto your body.
That makes much more sense. I have so many questions about what's about to happen. So, like, we should get into it so then we can talk about it. So, internally, Rena's like, oh, well, I already have a tattoo of a lotus, so what's the harm? And it's here that she shares with us that a lotus is a meaningful symbol to her because it always shows up when she needs guidance and has done so over the past 7 years. Cool, fine. So the whole intuitive tattoo thing happens and Rena kind of like blacks out / has a vision. And in this vision, she's on a battlefield in an arena somewhere and in the arms of a handsome dude wearing some golden armor with a symbol on his chest. And it turns out that that symbol is what Atara tattooed on Rena. And it's described as, quote, a crescent moon on its side with moonbeams below and an X in the background, end quote. And, like, this scene is weird for a number of reasons. One, I'm not really sure where she got the tattoo, but, like, the verbiage makes it seem like it was directly on her chest because Atara is described as, like, wiping Rena's sternum, which is a weird place to get a tattoo in a tattoo parlor with a bunch of people around because you have to take your shirt off. But also,
Yeah.
like, it's this tattoo is a symbol that ends up being magic. And so Itara is another person that's just doing magic in public. And also, like, is she an agent of somebody, or did she just draw on the fact that Rena is reincarnated and she's a magic person and this is her, like, brand of magic? I don't know. We never see her again. Not in this book.
I know,
anyway.
and it's the way that she talked to Rena made me really think that she was going to play a bigger role later. Like,
right.
She's kind of ooky spooky and is like giving her these kind of, not warnings, but like veiled tidbits. And I really thought she was going to come back around, and she didn't.
Yeah, like she's like presented as somebody who's like a seer of some kind, right? Because she like knows who Rena is. Like it can be read that she knows who Rena is, but she's just playing it off as like, oh, I heard your name from your friend. Oh, you know, this is the vibe that I'm getting from you. But I'm like, no, it feels like she knows who you are. So like, is that her magic, or is she being paid by somebody?
I don't know. I did, going back for a second, I did feel the same way about getting a tattoo on her chest for someone who didn't really want a tattoo. Because like a lot of people get chest tattoos. You do have to take your shirt off. I don't have one. But like I've seen people in tattoo shops getting them. Usually you're like behind some kind of a screen or you have like pasties on. Fine. But for someone who didn't really want a tattoo, it's a ballsy place to then get one.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was so confused. I'm like, that seems like I'm not getting a tattoo to I'm going to get a chest tattoo. Feels like it escalated pretty quickly.
Yeah. Okay, so I did just do a quick Goog on intuitive tattoos just to see like if I was right. And I am right, but it's also usually, the design seems to usually be done by like a spiritual advisor artist, like a Reiki person, definitely not by the tattooer as they're tattooing.
Yeah,
like they create a design for you with meditation outside of a shop, and then you can bring it to a shop.
Yeah. Yeah. So like
artist.
I'm willing to believe that this person that's just their magic, but tell me a little bit more about why they're using magic in a public place and they're not getting reprogrammed. And two, like tell me a little bit more about like how that magic works. Like I wish that she had said more about that.
Yeah. It also almost feels like, and I might have read this in myself, but it almost feels like Atara recognizes this symbol somehow. But like, here you go, Rena, bye. Good luck.
Yeah. It's also just incredibly problematic because I guess it's not giving anything away here because there's not really a good time to talk about this. But this tattoo is the sign of Kelios, who sometimes I will call Kellogg's because that's just how I read it in my head, and I'm so sorry. But Kelios is also a god, and it turns out because Rena is the reincarnated daughter of Amre, in her prior life, she and Kelios were romantically involved. They were like mated. And so the sign that Rena just got tattooed on her body is the sign of Kelios.
That bothered me.
And I think that's important because it magically summons him and like lets him know that she's alive. But then also she just has his fucking sign on her body for the rest of her life. I mean, unless she gets it removed, right?
Right. It's basically like getting his name tattooed on her chest, which feels like a violation to do that without someone's consent or knowledge of what it is. Like, I understand the plot device purpose of this, but bringing it into a real world sense, if I just had some dude that I have no memory of, whether we dated in the past or not, his name tattooed on my chest, what if I don't like him anymore? Like, it feels like this mark of ownership, and this isn't that kind of book.
Yeah, well, and it like going beyond the like diving into the mark of ownership thing, it feels worse to me than having somebody's name, because at least you are aware of that. Mm-hmm. This symbol, like, she doesn't even know, right? And I'm forgetting whether or not she figures it out this book or not. But like at some point, somebody's gonna like tell her that. And like this is just another example of something that's just not. It's information that's being withheld from our main character. to her detriment.
Yeah, I wasn't comfortable with this.
Yeah. So regardless, we don't linger very long in the tattoo shop because like all of the lights start getting blown out and Rena can feel the magic searching for her. So everyone in the tattoo parlor, which seems to be as packed as a club, like just pushes out into the night. It's a straight, there's like a lot of people here.
There are way too many people in this tattoo parlor.
Yeah. So we then get a ye old perspective shift to Kelios, who I just mentioned, and he is on the planet of Taria. And this is where all of the gods in the celestial enclave live, and also the souls of some mortals, and also just some regular ass people. We'll get into it.
Yeah, thank you.
So Kelios is the god of the stars, and we learned that he was mated to Rena in a former life, like I mentioned. But we learned that she was killed, and Kelios has been distraught for like centuries. He tried to replace Rena with 2 different female human wives, sorry. And it was never really the same. And immediately I'm like, this guy's such a douche. Like, just don't, it's fine if you get married after like you lose your spouse, fine, like life goes on. Don't tell me you're trying to replace them.
Yeah, that was icky and I hated it. Yeah. Like, if you want to be with someone else, be with someone else. Like, do the thing. The replacement, you're setting those poor women up for failure.
Totally. Yeah. So, but Kelios has felt the summons because, like I mentioned, the tattoo that Rena got was his sigil. And something about the way that the tattoo was given to Rena acted like a magical summons that reached Kelios across the galaxy. So he ends up calling an audience with the rest of the Celestial Enclave, where they discuss the possibility that Rena is alive and reincarnated. We learn that when she died in Zor, they weren't able to find her soul and after she physically died, and so they weren't able to resurrect her. And they all interpreted this as her being gone forever. Apparently that's not the case anymore. So in this conversation, we're introduced to the god of planets, a dude named Silas. And it's clear that he also has a thing for Rena, but he's like butthurt because she chose Kelios instead of him. So the gods decide what to do, and they learn that not only is Rena alive, but the adopted sibling son of Amun-Re is also alive. So like Rena's adopted brother, essentially. And they all take that to mean that Amun-Re is also alive. So eventually, even after arguing that Rena is a totally new person and doesn't remember who she was, they agree that they need to save her, like physically remove her from Andorra to protect her from Amun-Re. Amun-Re. I keep saying the Egyptian god, Am-Re.
In my head, it was Amun-Re too.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So Silas, because he's the god of planets and he like knows everything about the planets and who's on them, he can take Kelios to Rena. Which this is another thing where I wish like I didn't know that, because like we see Kelios running or like meeting Rena and like Silas is not there. He's not, we don't meet Silas again for a while.
Yeah, this book gives a lot of information that I wish I didn't have, because it gives me more questions that I wish I didn't have.
Well, because here's the thing, like once we meet Silas, he's kind of a dick too, and you're not going to sit there and convince me that he just dropped Kelios off to go meet Rena by himself. Like that is incongruous with who I know Silas to be in this book.
Yep. Yeah.
Anyway, we go back to Rena, who I think is still in the same night, and she's lost track of Helena. She finds her way back to campus, where all of the lights on this courtyard area are systematically being blown out as well, like similar to what happened in the tattoo parlor. And there are people screaming and running, and in the chaos, Rena feels the magic call her name, searching for her. But before it can reach her, some random student approaches and like scares the magic off, I guess. So Rena's able to escape, and afterwards she barricades herself in her apartment because she's paranoid that this attack on the college campus will be blamed on her. And she's also afraid that the magic is going to come get her again. So as a result of this attack, classes are canceled for the next 2 days. And even though Helena reaches out to Rena, she doesn't answer her calls, saying that she's busy packing for her trip to Zor. every time night falls, Rena's afraid to sleep because she's afraid the magic will come back for her.
Why are you afraid of the magic coming for you? What does that actually mean? And why do you think it's going to be blamed on you? There's like 100 people out here doing magic. And if it is blamed on you, what does that mean?
Right, exactly. Well, and I do think it's interesting too that like she doesn't have anybody close to her. Like she says that she and Helena are like sisters, but she hasn't trusted Helena enough with the knowledge that she can do magic. And so like she really is alone, which I think is an interesting choice because it goes back to that trope of like these female main characters don't have friends.
Yeah, and I did find it interesting and hear that she has quote unquote friends, but they're stand-ins, like they're also blank pages. And I don't know if that's a choice to isolate Rena or if that is maybe a shortcoming in writing a female friendship. Because I do think a lot of romance authors, we've seen this so many times, don't know how to write friendship.
Or just don't see the value in it, right? And so what you have is this very isolated character whose only interaction ends up being with her love interest, parentheses S, or their friends, right? Like their love interests' friends, which is not okay.
No.
And just as a reminder, staff doesn't count.
Staff is not your friend.
Staff is not your friend. If you're paying them, they're not your friend. Anyway, so Rena does eventually fall asleep. And when she does, she sees a vision of a man in her bedroom. Her bedroom has turned into a galaxy, and she actually feels safe with this person. So it can be a little bit disorienting, but rather than feeling alarmed, she's like, oh, this is nice. She can't make out this person's face, but when he asks her whether she's happy to see him, she says yes, even though she can't really quite put her finger on why. A couple days later, Aramis calls Rena into his office and tells her that she's put him in a tough spot because he knows that she didn't make the attack on campus, but because of her outburst in his office and her reaction to the attack, she's caught the eye of several people. And we learn that when people are suspected of performing magic, that they get reprogrammed by the council, i.e. the ruling body. But he makes it seem like there's this investigation that's eventually going to circle around and find her. And I'm like, okay, brother, this might have been like you're going to sit there and tell me that you can't do anything to help in this situation. Like I feel bad calling her a secretary, but I don't have any reason to suspect that she's anything else. But like Galeen using magic in your meetings feels like a wildly irresponsible choice. Like,
yeah. And I thought this conversation was so strange because he's saying like, hey, I don't think it was you, but because of these things, you look sus. But one of those things was her quote unquote reaction to the attack. But they had to bring in like ambulances and shit. Like a lot of people reacted to the attack. Like they had to close school for 2 days.
Yeah.
I don't understand why her quote unquote reaction stood out any more than anyone else's.
So the thing that he's specifically talking about is like she was standing next to a lamppost and she was like concentrating her like quote unquote magic on keeping that lamppost alive so that it didn't go completely dark in the courtyard. But you told me in the first interaction that we had with magic that people who don't use magic can't tell when it's happening, right? Except for like the outward physical things like the lights going off. And so if you're sitting there telling me that these people are suspecting her because she was making hard eye contact with a lamppost, she could have just been waiting for it to explode. Like, I just don't understand why that would be sus.
Yeah, I don't understand that either. And like you said, he just has his secretary, for lack of a better word, fully using magic all the time in all his meetings. So don't pretend like I'm the one who caught people's eye by myself.
Right. Like, I'm honestly at this point wondering if like, or I had this thought and we keep getting told that only Omri has electric magic like Rena. And so I'm fairly confident this isn't the case, but I'm like, was this just a ploy from Kelios to like get Rena off the planet? Like, I just don't, this seems like so convenient.
I had that thought too. It seems way too easy.
Yeah, it's too easy. But for whatever reason, Aramis feels compelled to help Rena, and so calls in a friend of his to take her away to safety. And this friend ends up being Kelios, hence the convenience. Kelios offers to take her to his planet while this whole thing blows over. And while they get Rena's side of the story, we also learn that her magic is the same type of magic that this other attack on campus used. And that's why, like, they think that this magical force is after her. But they don't share anything else like, you know, it could be your dad and you're a god reincarnated or anything like that. So Rena doesn't want to go with Kel. She would rather go to Zor to continue her studies, which makes a lot of sense. But the men argue against that because they say it doesn't matter where she is in the galaxy because this like magical source could find her. Taria is different because there's this magical barrier that they like made a deal with a witch to do, even though they're gods. They couldn't make the barrier. So Taria is protected.
So it's the only place you're safe. Also with this dude whose symbol you had unwillingly tattooed on your chest and you don't know who he is. Good luck.
Don't worry about it. So Rena doesn't respond well to being told what to do. And her interactions with Kel are like positively toxic. Like they're just, he's such a dick, like immediately.
He's like not even trying to woo her.
No. And she goes so far as to ask why he's making it seem like she has a choice when she clearly doesn't. And he straight up tells her, quote, "I'm trying to be polite. I want you to go willingly," end quote.
But the unspoken part is you don't have to go willingly. You're going.
You will go. I want it to be willingly, but it doesn't have to be.
No skin off my back.
So it gets so heated to the point that Aramis eventually has to step in. And he's like, okay, Rena, why don't you think it over for the night and then let me know in the morning what your decision is.
Can I say no? Because it doesn't sound like I can.
I mean, the implication here is like you say no and either the council is going to reprogram you or you're going to go to Zor and you're just going to get found by this other magic. And it's just like, okay, talk about being between a rock and a hard place. Like, can I go to Taria with not this asshole?
Yeah, with literally anyone else. Also, how much does Aramis know? Like, does he know who Kel is? I have a lot of questions on who people know about what. Like, does Aramis know that he's a god? And why are there gods? I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, it would have been really cool if Aramis was just like the mortal, like, alias for Silas. That would have been awesome.
That would have been awesome. And that would help me feel better about why Rena is sexually attracted to literally every male in this book. If those were the same person, that would make me feel better.
Yeah, dude, we haven't talked about that yet, but like she's introduced to Aramis and I'm like, okay, let's go. Like headmaster, student, I'm here for this. Like, yes, dark academia me, baby. And then like Aramis disappears for like the rest of the book, basically after this scene. And so I'm like, okay, not Aramis. And then Kel shows up. And even though he's an asshole, she's like, oh, he's kind of hot and my nipples are hard. And I'm like, oh, okay. Is it a white shoes? I have questions. And we've talked a little bit about Dream Boy, but Dream Boy comes back in just a minute. And she's like sexually attracted to this guy too. And I'm like, I'm really having a tough time with understanding whether this is a white shoes or not.
Yeah, it's hard. And we talked about this in our debrief, and I don't know how much of it is going to make it in because we talked a lot. But it's one thing to make a character attractive. You don't have to make your female main character sexually attracted to all of them. Like, they could be good-looking dudes without her being like, my nipples are hard every time they enter a room or take their shirts off.
Yeah, like I'm just thinking about me in my day-to-day life. If I had that reaction to every like objectively handsome dude, existing would be so hard.
Well, that's what makes this so confusing. Like, I was with you in the same boat where we meet Aramis and I was like, yeah, you know how I feel about a student-teacher trope. Let's go. And that's not where we went. And I would like to go back to that.
Right. Yeah, because Kelios was like, oh, my love, my life. I'm an asshole who tried to replace her with two different women. And also I talked down to her this whole time. And I'm like, oh, I don't like that. And so I fear not, it's not just Kelios, but like, it was a rocky start. I was like, okay, please.
I don't want it to be this.
I don't want it to be this. Anyway, so speaking of the duder in the dreams, that night she dreams of the duder in the dreams. And in this encounter, or in these encounters in general, from here on out, when we talk about this guy, she's astral projecting to some place that actually exists. And so she can feel her environment around her and anybody that she interacts with. So this man tells Rena that he's been looking for her and has, after he found her, protected her for the last 7 years. She doesn't believe him until he tells her that all the lotuses that she's been seeing when she was lost or confused were him communicating with her. He tells her that he's appearing now to her because her needs of him have changed. He's like her spirit guide protector or some shit. And so he's just trying to, be helpful. So she asks to see his face, and he pulls back his hood to reveal himself, and he is described thusly. Quote, silver hair that almost seemed to glow was pulled back halfway in different braids. My eyes were next pulled to his slightly pointy ears, which were beautiful, but his gray-blue eyes captivated me as a strange magic lurked in them, making them glow dimly. He was young, but he seemed older than me, end quote. So he's like Legolas.
He's Legolas, and I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that too. We learned pretty quickly that this dude's name is Sethos, and it's just difficult to not refer to him as his name, so I'm just going to tell you that now. But yeah, of the male characters that we have, I think Sethos is the one that I like the most, but I'm still on the fence.
He's the one I like the most too, but I can't say I am rooting for them necessarily.
No, I did say that, like, when we were first reading this book and we were recording a different coverage, I had said that one thing that would make this book really interesting was exactly how this book ends. So I will say that it's good. Like, it does get to a place that's interesting. But for the first half of the book, I was like, I really do not want to read more about Kelios or Silas, honestly.
That's where I am currently. I am exactly at the halfway point, so I have not read past this. And I'm struggling a little bit. I don't hate it. I like what's happening mostly. It's just there's a lot of information, and I have a lot of questions that are pulling me out of the fantasy.
Yeah, and so, like, when you said at the top of our episode that this is 330 pages or thereabouts, and it feels long, that's what I meant by pacing, because this entire book is basically a waiting game, right? Like, you are waiting around for someone else to do something. And then at the end of the book, that thing happens, but you wait the entire time. Like, there's no action happening here on the part of Rena.
Yeah. And even like the conversations we're having or that we see behind the scenes are still a lot of that hurry up and wait. Like, here's the information. Here's what could happen. And then we have to like continue to walk and meander to get there.
Yeah. Like, I wish we had spent time waiting in maybe different parts. Like, maybe we had spent a little bit more time in Andorra waiting for her to make a decision. And she's like, well, how bad could it get? And then, like, maybe the secret police come for her and then she has to teleport out like super, super quick or whatever. But as it happens, we just spend the rest of the book in Taria waiting.
Still waiting for the thing to come.
Right. Anyway, but until we get a little bit ahead of ourselves, but until we get there, we're still in dreamland. So Seth can tell that this knowledge bomb and his beautiful visage has put Rena in a state of a bit of shock. So he tells her to sleep. And so I think that she just actually sleeps for a little bit, because then we immediately get another interlude with him. And so it's unclear if it's the same night, but I think it has to be, because after this, she's still giving Aramis her answer. So it was a little unclear, but
yeah.
Anyway, in this one, we learned that his name is Sethos, and Rena ends up telling Seth about the attack on her on campus, and he's very concerned and wants to make sure she's not hurt. She assures him that she's fine, but she's unsure whether or not to go with Kel. But Sethos is like, you should make the right choice for your safety, but still advocate for yourself and raise your concerns with Aramis, which I appreciated, because, like, the scenes that we get with Sethos, he is really, I think he's the only diplomatic one of the bunch.
For sure. Yes. But this again brought my question up of like, well, who the fuck is Aramis? Like, does he have any power, or is he just like some rich headmaster?
Yeah, no, it's a great question because she raises her concerns with Aramis and then we never see him again.
Yeah, so like, why would Sethos even say, you know, yeah, you'll be safe, fine, but you should talk to this guy about it? We're like, that guy doesn't do anything. He's not anyone that I know of.
Yeah, I don't know. And yeah, I mean, so that's a good question because I don't know how much Seth knows versus like inferring from what she's saying, because the stuff that he's saying is admittedly not very detailed.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the next day she goes to Aramis and does just that. And we learn a little bit more about Taria, where she'll be going. Aramis tells her, quote, Taria was originally an afterlife dimension created by the gods for the priests and priestesses who served them. Over time, as the council gained traction in their cruel punishment of people using magic, Taria became a safe haven for all people who practice magic. People living in Taria are there by choice, and only those invited to live there know of its exact location. I cannot tell you how many questions this 3 sentences raises for me.
Yeah.
And
Me
some
too.
of those questions I'll have to save for part 2 because I just have a lot of questions after the end of the book. But let's just start with the first one, because it says Taria was originally an afterlife dimension created for the gods, for the priests and priestesses who serve them. Fine. That implies that the priests and priestesses who serve them are dead. And their souls are living there. So you're telling me that Taria is this weird mix of alive people and soul people living together with gods?
That no one believes in or is allowed to talk about anymore?
Well, but going to the believing part, I'm not sure that matters for gods to exist. Like, because we haven't been introduced to any kind of religion that's associated with these gods, which is strange.
It doesn't matter. And I know I keep bringing that up and you keep bringing up the point like, well, I don't think it's religious, but like you can't give me the terms gods and goddesses and like god of blank and me not have like a religious connotation.
Yeah. I mean, so they have a weird conversation, they being Sethos and Rena. They have a weird conversation about how like Kel's job is being a god. And so like, that's just kind of a wild concept for me, but that's kind of how they're presented. Like they're gods who do a tactical thing, which
It's a dog with a job.
It's a dog with a job, right? But like that's fine. But it feels like they're gods with a job and very little unique power, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think I just keep getting hung up on that because you have this technology magic divide, and I keep talking about it because it just confuses me so much that these are gods that are immortal and don't seem to serve a tangible purpose.
Right. Like their godhood doesn't serve a tangible purpose.
Exactly. The characters do.
Yeah.
But they don't need to be gods. They could just be like, we could be talking about the council. These are just people
with a job.
With a job.
Anyway, Aramis goes on to tell Rena that people use magic on Taria, but that she'll never be forced to do so if she doesn't want to. So then Kel joins them, and he immediately teleports Rena to Taria without warning.
So much for talking about my concerns, guys.
Yeah. So Rena is rightfully upset by this and tells Kel that he should have at least given her a warning before doing that. But their argument is interrupted by a woman named Nira. We learn that she's also a god on Taria, and like she has this silvery outline that denotes her divinity, but curiously, Kel doesn't have that, and I don't know why yet. Anyway, she's Kel's friend, and they're essentially colleagues in the Celestial Enclave. So if you think about gods in this universe as like immortals with a job, she has a different job in this Celestial Enclave. So speaking of people just going through a revolving door into this house, their introduction is interrupted by yet a third person named Madeira, who turns out to be Kel's mom. And she tells Kel very cryptically not to make the same mistake again. She tells him that Zor's destruction could have been prevented, and it specifically seems like she doesn't want Rena to be there. Both Kel and Nira ask her to leave and tell her not to be rude, but Madeira just says again not to make the same mistake and then leaves, like creates like a thunderstorm and lightning and just like, well, bam, like poofs out of existence.
I'm gone.
I'm gone. I'm like a magician.
I'm like a magician. That's how I pictured it. Like the smoke under the stage and she's gone.
Right. So Rena asks why Madeira would say that, and Nira and Kelios just tell her that Zor was destroyed 2 millennia ago when Andorra was still young, and that Zor was destroyed by the same god that's hunting Rena, which is why Madeira sees Rena as a threat. But Kel assures Rena that they're safe because, as one of the founders of Taria, he knows that the god hunting Rena doesn't know of its location. And he also shares with her that there's this special shield that combined a bunch of God's powers and that a witch made, blah, blah. And so that, like, between those two things, she's definitely got nothing to worry about.
I think I've said this about other books, but it really bothers me when our main character isn't given all the information, but I don't know why. Like, why aren't we telling her who's hunting her? There's a reason, but I want to know it.
Yeah, I mean, so it feels like they're just withholding information from her because they feel like if they give her any information, she's going to find out that she's like reincarnated and stop. Like, one of the things that I'm not quite sure of the motivation is like, I understand why Kelios would not want to tell her these things. Like, he tells us in his own internal monologue in just a minute here, like, he doesn't want her to feel like she has to fall. Like, he doesn't want to force her to fall in love, even though he says that he totally wants that to happen. He wants her to fall in love with him again organically, right? But it doesn't make sense to me why they wouldn't tell her everything but that.
Right.
Like, hey, this god, here's his name. You're his kid. Like, sorry about it. You should be concerned.
Yeah, because I get the whole organic love thing and I'm here for that. But I think she should be made aware of the rest.
Right. Even, I mean, Kelios, I feel like you would have a better shot at like winning her over if you told her like, hey, we were together when you were here before, and I don't want you to feel like beholden to me or like you owe me anything. But if I act weird, this is why.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Because like I knew you 2 millennia ago and you're a little different and I'm a little confused.
Right.
Because I've been mourning you for so long. I think that would be a better shot too. And even if you didn't want to say all that, I still think he would have a better shot if at the very least she got to know like, hey, girl, this is why you have magic. Like, you have been reincarnated. I know that's a lot of information for you to cope with, but we need you to know because like bad things are coming for you.
Right. Yeah. So these two go on to say that Kel lost somebody close to him when Zor was destroyed, and that person was also pregnant. Spoilers. So Nora goes on to tell Rena that Kel might be hard on the outside, but he's soft and gooey on the inside, kind of like one of the newfangled cough drops that I've been using over the last 15 days.
Those are great.
They're great. Anyway, then Rena is shown to her room, and it has a balcony that overlooks the sea, but Nira tells us that it's an illusion, and so it's not actually an ocean that Rena can like go swimming in. Then there's a lot of talk about Rena getting new clothes because she's wearing essentially clothes for a desert planet like you might expect from Star Wars. Like, picture Rey, I think is her name.
That's what I was picturing.
Yeah. But it seems a little incongruous because we didn't actually get a lot of descriptions of Andorra. And so it just kind of comes out of nowhere that like, oh, you're crusty, dusty.
Like, good talk.
Okay, good stuff. But then there's like this awkward back and forth because like Kel teleported her away from Andorra before she could like pack anything, and she like doesn't have any money. And Kel's like, oh, don't worry, I'll buy you new clothes because like you're a guest in my house. And she's like, I'm uncomfortable with that. And he's like, pish posh applesauce, it's gonna happen. Anyway, Nira and Rena decide to go shopping the next day, which is very strange.
It's so strange. This whole little montage right here was very strange to me. And it didn't, I feel like it was supposed to make me like Kel, like, oh, he's taking care of her, but he still just looks like a douche.
I know, because it's like, It has the same energy of when you go out to eat with friends or family or whoever, and rather than just either going to the waitress and paying for it like off camera, or like just surreptitiously like grabbing the check from the waitress when she drops it off and paying for it and then like saying nothing, making a big show of being like, oh, I'm gonna pay for dinner, so you buy whatever you want, right? Oh, waitress, just so you know, everything's on me. Don't let anybody, like, showboating about it. And it's like, nah,
Yeah.
I get it.
Which is way less appealing than just like covering it at the end without talking about it.
Or just saying like,
Also,
don't worry about it.
yeah, like I got it. You don't have to make it this whole grand, like, get whatever you want. It's on my dime.
Well, and it's also never a conversation of like, oh, we can just go back and grab some things. You teleported here. You teleported. You cannot tell me that you're not going to be able to teleport back, grab a fucking thing, and teleport back.
Right. And also, whose fault is it that you didn't give me any warning or time to pack? Like, you basically kidnapped me. Like, I came to have a conversation and you took me. I could have said like, hey, I just need to grab some shit. Like, I don't know, my laptop.
Right. Literally anything. She has the
Some
clothes
underwear.
on her back. That's it.
It's crazy.
So before Kel leaves, he tells Rena to consider his home her home while she's there and to come to him if she needs anything. He tells her, quote, I hope in time you can trust me. We all carry heavy burdens, end quote.
Go away from me.
Go.
I don't
go.
like him.
Leave me alone. Ew, gross.
Be gone.
Nasty.
He gives me the ick.
He gives me a big ick for sure.
I'm not a fan.
So when Nira and Rena are alone, Nira shares that she is the god of the moon and Kel is the god of the stars, and he's one of the oldest god in the Enclave. Nira tells Rena that they work together to patrol the heavens. And because they are immortal, they don't need sleep and they don't eat either, but Nira's like, I'll sit with you while you eat dinner if that makes you feel better. And Rena's just like, pass, thank you.
Because that's fucking weird. Don't watch me eat.
It's so fucking weird. But this conversation gets wilder because Nira tells us the way that they do their job is that they go on a platform that's, quote, suspended in the heavens called the Watch, end quote. And for that reason, Rena will likely not see much of Kel because he's doing his duties. I have about 1,000 questions about this Watch platform thing.
Me too. Namely, what are you looking for and how can you see it? Is that a magic thing? Are there like those touristy goggle things? What is your job? What do you do if you see something that you're not supposed to see?
Yeah, well, also, where is it? Like,
just above. It doesn't move?
Above infinite space? Like, how does that work? Like,
I don't know. In my head, okay, this is going to sound really stupid, and I know we're not in the Milky Way galaxy, but in my head, you see our galaxy, right? You have the sun and you have like all the planets all in a line, and then there's just like a rainbow above it, and that's where they stand. That was what I saw.
I'm picturing literally,
and the planets don't move.
Of
They're
course
just
not.
in a line.
I'm picturing literally like the catwalk above a stage.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm picturing. That's just the organization I have it in, but it's just it's just like a metal frame with some of those coin-operated spy glass things that you see at like piers.
So he has to go to work with a whole fuck ton of quarters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm sure it's the case. I mean, this is one of the questions that I want to ask Mina when we interview her is like, tell me how you picture the Watch. Because I'm struggling. Because I'm sure it's the thing of like, they have this magic pool, right? And it's like they can see, different whatever things. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where you go and you can look and you can like key into like, I want to go see Johnny in San Francisco, and it like finds him and you can like watch what's happening.
Right, exactly.
In the magic pool. Yeah.
In the magic pool.
So I pictured it in a different way if I took out my like catwalk rainbow. And instead of a magic pool, I got stuck on the technology. And I think it's in the Santa Claus, and he's got like this wall of TVs with like all the children in the world, like and what they're doing.
That's terrifying.
I know. It is.
Yikes. Okay. Well,
so
anyway.
I cannot wait to ask her what she sees, because it's not, I guarantee it's not what we are seeing.
I guarantee it. Yeah, no, my brain interprets a lot of things very literally. And this one, I'm just like, I got nothing here.
Like, girl, if you got a TV show, how would you want this to look?
Right.
Explain it to me.
I'm a producer. Your book has been bought for an HBO series. Describe this shit to me.
Because I got nothing.
Yeah. So anyway, the next day, Nira and Rena go shopping, and they have cars, sky cars, they call them. And so a sky car takes them into town. And while they're riding in the sky car, they have a conversation about the source of magic, which is literally called the source. And Nira says that no one knows where it came from, but after it was created and the gods were created, the enclaves were organized. There's the celestial, the spiritual, and the elemental enclaves, but the other two enclaves don't live on Taria. We also learned that Andromeda, which is where Andorra is the only human-inhabited galaxy after the Milky Way was abandoned during something called the Great Migration. And that's where I think this post-apocalyptic, like, tag comes from, because, like, it's in the future where the Milky Way became uninhabitable, and so they had to leave.
Yeah, and that's valid. When I see the tag of post-apocalyptic, I have a much different image of what that story is going to be. And this isn't that for me. So I was like, post-apocalyptic? Like, what?
Yeah, I mean, I guess technically, but when I say post-apocalyptic, I feel like it has much more of a impact on the story, and this is just like literally the location has changed.
Yeah, where post-apocalyptic to me is like we're in the next 100 years after the world has ended, and we're still trying to figure out how to survive. Not right. We've fully terraformed a whole other galaxy and we're fine.
Yeah, we're good. We're several chapters past that.
Yeah.
Anyway, Rena sarcastically says, oh, great. I'm so glad we got stuck with the council after that. And she asks whether Nira and the other gods can do anything about that because they're gods. But Nira essentially says no. And Rena gets so worked up that Nira has to tell her to breathe, because remember, when she gets angry, her magic just manifests, right?
But I also don't know why she's so upset here.
Well, I think it's because she's asking for help, and she too doesn't understand what the job of the gods are.
Okay, that's fair. And if I met a god and I'd be like, what do you mean you can't do anything? I would be pretty pissed off too.
Yeah, so Nira gives this one-line fixer of the reason that they can't intervene with humans is because humans have free will. Okay. She goes on to say that this current time with the council is but like a flash in the pan, right? And that good days are ahead for humans. And because she knows that it's impossible for her or anybody else to intervene. She again coaches Rena to calm down because she knows that Rena's magic comes to the surface when she gets angry. And it's like this whole weird, like, Rena can't control, like, her emotions and is being talked off the ledge kind of thing. And, like, I understand being mad about this and not understanding what gods can do if they can't help you here, because I, too, have that question. But, like, it just seemed like a wild thing for Rena to lose her cool about.
Well, especially because this book starts and we basically learn like she's kept her magic under control for like a decade, and now she has zero control. And I don't know if maybe that's because she's like closer to the source, maybe, or she's just losing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it would have been more real for me if, like, going back to the what happens when you get reprogrammed or whatever, like, Rena doesn't seem to have a personal connection with the evil of the council, right? It's just kind of this nebulous, like, they do war crimes thing. And that's tough, but, like, I just don't understand the emotional connection for her in this particular conversation.
Yeah, and I think it would be more powerful if, like you had said earlier, when they first left if we had spent more time there waiting and she was actually like found and threatened, or we got more information like she lost a friend to reprogramming and like has more of a tangible connection to what that means.
Or she remembers her birth mom and her birth mom got reprogrammed and she's never seen her again.
Yeah. Whereas this just feels like, okay, it's this amorphous thing that is scary, but I don't know why you're this upset about it.
Right. Exactly. So they arrive in town and we learn that there's an equinox celebration that people are like preparing for, but this is a celebration that we don't see in this book. Maybe we'll see it in book 2.
I love a good celebration scene.
I do too. So they end up at a dress shop where Rena is at first discriminated against because she looks like a poor.
A delivery was perfect.
But after Nira explains that Kel will be paying and that Rena is Kel's special friend, the atelier changes his tune pretty quickly. So they go on to shop at other places, and Rena feels like she's being watched, and so she looks outside and she sees a woman watching her from outside the store across the street, but when she goes to investigate, the woman is gone. So she's like, that's weird, doesn't think more about it. Until they're about to leave, and Rena gets teleported again against her will to someplace else, and that woman is there. She introduces herself as Lavina, the goddess of fate and destiny, and she tells Rena that Rena is inherently good, but she's getting off course. Rena needs to be true to herself and not give up her magic. She tells her that she will go home before the equinox, but Rena has to be patient. She needs to understand balance, and that her strength will be in the darkness, and that is where she will build a home. Lavinia doesn't share more than that because she's not allowed to, otherwise she'll lose her power, which is kind of a wild thing to know about gods in this universe.
Yeah, that was weird.
And so she sends Rena back to Nira, and no time has passed, so it just feels like Rena had like a That's So Raven moment and like moved on.
This scene was so weird to me also because previously on, when Kel first like approaches their council and is like, Rena's alive, and you have the Destiny fortune teller, I don't remember if it's the same goddess. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. She's basically like, I can't say more because it can affect what happens. Like, you have to let what happens, which we get that in a lot of stories with the fates. Like, you can't intervene because it'll fuck it up. And then she just intervenes?
Yeah.
How can you get off course? Wouldn't that be the course?
It is weird. Like, I don't know where the line is drawn here. Like, this feels like a very intentional intervention here because she's getting off course and she's like course correcting, right? Like, should you be able to do that, or should you have to send like, I don't know. Like, it just seemed like a weird delineation.
It was a weird delineation, and it just feels counter to like everything Lavina said the first time we met her. And the fact that like, if I say more, I'm going to just lose my power. Like, and what does that mean? I'm just going to pretend I don't have those questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's watching you? It's fine. It's fine. The source just knows, also, I guess.
The source, I don't know. It also just feels like the butterfly effect thing, right? Like, okay, you told her to course correct. Now what happens if she overcorrects? Like, have you now ruined everything because you intervened? Like, maybe the course she was on was the right course. Like, whenever we get into like messing with the fates, it feels like a very messy potential plot for anyone who's read things that have to do with the fates.
Yeah. But we'll table that because we don't get an answer about that in this book. So
great.
Before they get back into the car to go back to Kel's house, Silas shows up and introduces himself. He's described like a jackass. He has green eyes and, quote, wild, full brown-black hair and relaxed and carefree body language. Silas wore a black leather motorbike jacket, a white V-neck t-shirt, necklaces that look like military dog tags seen in Earth pawn shops, and combat boots. And
gross. No, thank you.
Pass.
That is the opposite of my type.
This is the equivalent of wearing tap-out clothing for me. No, thank you. Keep walking.
Yep. Keep walking. No, thank you. Also, he like rides up on a motorcycle later, and I'm just like, gag.
So he manages to get Rena alone and speaks with her, and like Rena is flustered because she's attracted to him.
Ugh, why?
biblically.
Girls attracted
And-
to anything that moves.
Dude, anything that moves with a dick, apparently.
Apparently.
And, you know, she's flattered by the attention to the point where she tells us, quote, "This was the first time I had smiled freely in Taria." And like, this is the part where I started to be like, it feels very much like Rena's just getting her happiness from other people, which I don't think is very healthy.
No.
Anyway, Silas reveals that he knows that Rena's being hunted and tells her that the person hunting her's name is Ray. He then tells her that he wants to get to know her, and she doesn't immediately tell him no, so he says that he'll see her around. When Rena gets back to Nira tells her that Kel won't be pleased that Rena spoke to Silas, but Rena says, quote, "I don't owe Kel anything. I barely know him." And this is one of those moments where I feel like this book is a little schizophrenic because it knows that this is ridiculous, but it treats some of these interactions like so seriously between these characters where they have like this fake intimacy going on. And maybe that has to do with the fact that like Rena's reincarnated, and so the people around her do know her better than she knows her, but it's just wild to read.
It is, and it's confusing. It's one of those writing techniques that it's a dangerous one, right? Because it could be really fascinating to kind of like play with this. I'm going to use this ridiculous thing and make it really serious, and our readers know it's insane. But I think that's really hard to execute, and I'm not sure it was really executed the way it was intended.
Well, I'm interested to see how like the next potentially 2 books evolve, because like there are things that we're talking about that could be like that could make it more impactful, but like there are a couple of scenes in this book where I'm just like, oof, that feels icky because of that like fake close intimacy thing.
Yeah. And it is, the reincarnation thing is tricky because they do know Kel and how he's going to respond, and they've watched him mourn for like 2 millennia. But she doesn't know that. So she's like, I don't know that guy, and he's gross.
And he's kind of an
And
ass.
you can't blame her for that either.
No, absolutely not. So this interaction doesn't sit well with Rena, and it makes the car ride home between her and Nira awkward. And when they get home, Kel is training with the goddess of war named Ukara. Rena is immediately infatuated because Kel is half naked, and she's a horn dog, apparently.
Okay, also, this is the thing. Like you said earlier, if I walked around getting turned on by any classically attractive looking man, that would be chaos. If I don't like someone, like, I don't know, someone who kidnapped me, I don't care how hot you are. It's not going to do it for me because I don't like you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm gonna even say the kidnapping thing aside because we've read some books, but like you're just an asshole. Actually,
you're just mean to me, and I don't like you.
Don't talk down to me. Like, don't be mean to me. Don't insult my intelligence. Fuck off.
Yeah. Also, let me use my own clothes.
Right.
You're right. The kidnapping thing aside, I did make a TikTok literally today holding Ice Planet Barbarians because it was a good prop.
Amazing. So they stop fighting, and Ukara offers to help Rena continue her studies because she has access to ancient Zor weaponry. But she makes it very clear that she has a problem with Rena looking at books for research, and so she invites her to a place called the Tombs so that Rena can like study the real thing. And I'm like, okay, reading is bad, Ukara. Like, stay in your lane.
I thought that was wild, and I was like, is it because things are false in books, or does Ukara just hate books?
Oh, I hadn't considered that maybe what's in the book is false. Which, like, if that's the reason, that's a good reason.
Yeah, if it's like, hey, like, there's false knowledge in here, so I don't want you getting everything from this and then, like, taking that and then propagating that with the rest of the humans.
Yeah. But it reads, like, if I didn't think about it too hard, which clearly I didn't, it reads like Gaston from Beauty and the Beast.
It does read like that. I had to take a second and be like, is there another reason? And Ukara still could be Gaston.
Yeah, she could be. But
I have no basis in this other than the fact that why are we dissing reading? This girl's a doctoral student. Haven't you heard her speak?
Hasn't she told you?
Also, again, I don't know who Aramis is. I don't know why he matters and why he knows about this place, but she's working on her dissertation. How is she supposed to publish a paper on how she went to this other dimension where gods live and people can freely do magic that we're not supposed to talk about? And I saw artifacts and weapons that don't exist anymore, but I didn't read any books. All my research comes from this dimension that I went to.
Oh, that's a solid point that I hadn't thought about.
How's she supposed to publish that? Wouldn't they have questions? I would have questions. Like, girl, you crazy?
Yeah, that's like publishing like a quantum physics dissertation when somebody like brought a time machine back in time for you to study.
Yeah, it's insane.
Like, girl, where'd you get that? Don't worry about it.
Don't ask questions you don't want the answers to.
Yeah. So the training ends and Ukara leaves, and it quickly comes to light that Nira and Rena ran into Silas when they were in town. And Kel gets real territorial real fucking fast, and he literally dismisses Nira so he can rant and rave at Rena on her own. Great isolationist behavior here.
He's a problem.
Yeah, he self-identifies as a problem.
I identify him as a problem, that's for damn sure.
So lucky for us, we get a yield perspective shift for this fight. And so Kel tells us in his internal monologue that he realizes he's being crazy. And he knows that Rena is upset at his reaction, and he doesn't blame her because he doesn't actually understand what he's doing either. He tells us that he's terrified of being rejected because he's so in love with who Rena used to be, and he wants her to fall in love with him again all over. But he says this weird thing. He says, quote, "It was a relief to know that her Spitfire and Hellion energy had remained the same," end quote. Which seems weird because he has literally had a bad reaction to her having a, quote, Spitfire and Hellion energy, quote, every single time that has reared its head. So, like,
yeah, I don't think he actually likes that about her.
Yeah, so it's like one of two things is true. Like, either you don't actually like that about this person, or that's not how she used to be, right? And so you're expecting something completely different. Both of those are bad.
Both of those are bad. But he does say, like, this remained the same. So that is how she was before. So did you like it then? I feel like Kel has a case of, I lost the person I loved, so I've really built them up in my head. But then when I meet them again, I don't really like them that much.
Yeah, like, I'm questioning whether Kel likes women at all. Like, have you seen any of those TikToks that's just like, look, if you don't like your wife, consider maybe that you're gay.
I have seen those TikToks. I like seeing the ones on the other side too, from the husbands that do like their wives, and all their friends are like, oh yeah, night out on the town away from the ball and chain. And the good guy is like, I'm going to go home and hang out with my friend because I like her.
Right. Like, I've also seen, there's this, just a quick tangent about TikTok trends, but there's this trend that's like, somebody, and it's like, yeah, I didn't marry a fucking asshole. And one of them is like, oh my gosh, you spend like all of your time together. And it's like, yeah, I didn't marry a fucking asshole.
Because I like this person.
Just like, why is this hard? It's fine. Anyway, Rena calls him out for being an alpha and a bully. And though he disagrees, he doesn't outright deny it. He just tells Rena to be careful because he knows that Silas isn't serious and he wants more from her than probably Rena wants to give. Rena tells Kel that he knows nothing about her, and then he goes on to riddle off a bunch of facts about her and like have that serve as proof that he does. But then he ends the conversation by saying, quote, "You are free to speak to whomever. What you do with your personal time here is none of my business," end quote, which is in direct conflict with how he actually acts for the rest of the book. So like, I don't even know why he said it. This whole conversation is just so weird.
It is weird. It's like Kel doesn't know who he is any more than he knows who Rena now is.
Oh, that's such a good point, actually. But yeah, I really hate it when we've encountered this in a couple of different books. But like when the male main character or somebody like riddles off like, oh, I know your favorite color is blue and that you're a doctoral student and you're studying blah, blah. And like your best friend's Helena. And it's just like, no, that just proves that you're a stalker, actually.
Exactly. It doesn't And because none of the facts are actually meaningful facts either. It's just like, okay, so you've been watching me.
Cool.
You don't know me.
No, exactly.
Awesome.
So we switch back to Rena, and she tells us that time is passing. And during this time, she and Nira go into town regularly to pass time. Which then begs the question, Nira, what is your job? And who's doing it? It's fine.
And is it necessary? It's fine.
On one of these excursions, they see a section of town that's quiet and less trafficked. And Nira tells Rena that this is where the witches live, but they mostly keep to themselves. One night, when Rena comes back to the house, she runs into Kel, who gives her a backpack with some supplies in it that he got for her to continue her research. And then they have this really awkward interaction where he puts the backpack on her and it's somehow sexually charged. But before anything can actually happen, Kel just steps away and like Rena's disappointed about it.
Which, why? Do you like him? Because I don't think you do.
Okay,
why are you disappointed?
I have to know, what did you think about the backpack scene?
I thought it was so weird. It was so uncomfortable. And it was one of the things where like I was trying to map it out in my head. And no way could I see it as being sexy, even if they had chemistry. It just wasn't. At the most, it's sweet. I don't understand where the sexual charge comes from.
Well, and then it's like, so you play it forward, he leaves, and then she's just standing in her wherever with a backpack on. Like she's coming home for the night.
Right. Which, like, why couldn't he just give her the backpack at home?
I mean, they are at home, but like you had to put it on her. She's trying to go to bed.
Like, just hand it to her, or just like leave it in her room with a note or something. Why are you putting it? It was just like a reason for them to touch. And it was so weird because now you've put this backpack on me. Now I have to take it off and put it down. What? Why are we here?
It's just so, okay. They go on to have a conversation, ostensibly with her backpack still on. And he says that he has an update about Helena and that she's okay. And that they've just told her that Rena left on her trip to Zor early to like cover for her the fact that she's in this super secret Taria place. He then shares that the entire campus has been locked down by the council and that all the students are undergoing interrogations because of the attack on essentially Rena that led to her leaving. During this interaction, Kel's eyes start swirling with what's described as like a molten gold color. But when Rena asks about it, he blinks and it's gone. And I have to think that it has something to do with like when gods get aroused, because Kel obviously doesn't answer the question when she asks what it is.
Yeah, I think it happens when he's aroused, but I don't really know why he was aroused, but and I would be into the molten gold thing if I liked him, but I don't like him.
Yeah, we see something similar happen with Silas too. And I don't like either of them. And so like you said, it would be cool if I liked them, but it's just it's an indicator to me that she's in danger.
You in danger, girl.
Yeah. So when Rena's alone in her room, she masturbates and tries to think about Kel, but all that she thinks about is actually Sethos. Sethy boy.
I didn't hate this scene because I do like, we get the scene a lot. It's a pretty common romance trope where like, I'm going to masturbate thinking about person A, but person B is very intrusive. And I did like it because I like Sethos more than Kel. So I was like, yeah, girl, listen to that subconscious.
Right. Exactly. So speaking of, Seth visits her every night. And one of these nights, she wakes up on a seashore and sees Sethos a little ways away. And this is an awkward introduction because she states like aloud, quote, "You are troubled." But she describes it as shouting over the thundering waves. And he doesn't hear her. And so like when I first read this, I just was like, I laughed out loud at the picture of her like sitting up on a beach, looking over there and shouting, "You're troubled!" And just like nobody hearing her.
It was an awkward scene for me too. I was like, and you're astral projecting, right? Like you can't control that? I don't know. Just be closer. It seems so weird and so awkward for no reason.
So once the awkwardness fades, she gets closer to him and they end up having a conversation where he tells her that where they are is where his mother was born. And he didn't think that it would affect him so much, but that's why he's sad. And then they go on to talk about how they both feel like they're being tainted by the chaos within them. During this conversation, Seth rightly intuits that because Rena feels this way, that's why she refuses to use her magic. They go on to talk about Rena's living arrangements on Taria, and she at once says that Kel is an asshole, and then on the other hand defends him against Seth's reproaches as well. And I'm like, girl, which is it? Like, pick a side.
I don't know. And I don't understand why she's defending him or like attracted to him at all. And like, maybe that's because she's reincarnated, but I wish that was fleshed out a little bit more because I don't see the chemistry and I don't understand the defense of him.
I don't either. And I have to think that it's some kind of lingering like reincarnation thing, like you said.
Yeah.
But even Seth like asks that she not make excuses for him just because she finds Kel attractive, which I liked.
I did like that. But also she finds everyone attractive.
Yeah. I don't think she's a good barometer of what's attractive or not.
No.
So they end up racing into the water and like doing this flirty thing, but it's really just an excuse for them to have a close physical moment that's also sexually charged. But it's cut short by a wave that literally pulls Rena under the water to the point that Seth has to like save her. And when they get back to shore, she's got like this gash on her arm, and he demonstrates that he uses his magic to heal her. And he tells her, you know, all magic can be used for good, but she clams up and tells him that she doesn't want to talk about her magic. So drop it.
I had questions in here because if he's visiting her every night, is this girl ever sleeping? And if she's injured in these moments, is she actually injured?
I had a question about the injury too, because I think it's she kind of just gives us this like drive-by fact that I don't think that she's actually sleeping when she spends time with him.
I don't think so either. But then when does she sleep?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the next day she goes to see Ukara about the weapons. But before she does, Kel sees her off and asks what she likes to do in her free time. She tells him she reads smut. He files that information away and then asks that she call him Kel instead of Kelios. Fine. So the driver takes Rena into the middle of the desert, and then there's, quote, a fenced off pen, which feels like something out of a video game, like just in the middle of nowhere. And it's like Ukara's there surrounded by some crates and some weapons. And I'm like, just in the middle of nowhere? Cool.
Just like this weird training arena for gods? Okay.
So Ukara shares with Rena that all of the weapons that are before her are Zorian, but they're replicas because all of the originals were destroyed when Zor was destroyed. These replicas were created by the patron god of blacksmithing because he lost to Ukara in a 1-to-1 combat bet situation. We then learn that Ukara is not a part of any enclave, despite the fact that her father is the god of the sun, Arios. Rena is impressed because she tells us, quote, the woman had commanded armies, end quote. Then Ukara forces Rena to fight with her using the weapons because in her opinion, that's how Rena is really going to learn the most and be able to write a good dissertation. Which, going back to your point, like how are you going to explain that one away? But
yeah, like, oh, because this god made them.
You know, the gods.
Don't worry about it.
We can totally talk about.
That we're not allowed to believe in or talk about.
So they train for a little bit, but they're interrupted by Silas, who has come on his motorbike to see Rena. We learn in this interaction that Silas
gross
and Ukara used to be married, but besides like getting divorced, like they're still friends. And like the reason that they weren't compatible is because they never really like showed each other who they were on the inside. They were like both putting on these weird masks. Like, it's so strange because Ukara tells Rena like, oh, well, he never really let me in. And then like cut to Silas in a couple of chapters telling Rena the exact same thing about Ukara. Like, okay. I think the truth is Ukara is just a lesbian.
That's the thing.
Right. So Rena wants to go on a ride with Silas, but Ukara is like, what am I going to tell Callias? Like, what the fuck? They are all acting like they're her parent. And she's like, you don't have to tell him anything. Like, fuck off.
I'm an adult. Also, he said I could talk to whoever I wanted.
Right.
Because I can.
So Silas takes her to a magically generated oasis where they sit next to the water, and Rena tells him about her experience growing up. We learn that they have something in common, which is that they're both orphans. And Silas goes on to show her how his magic works. He conjures a red stag, who is his chosen animal symbol, or Dritani, which are symbols that can be representatives of a god's magic and can like represent them in battle and things like that. But the stag doesn't like Rena very much and tries to charge at her to the point where Silas has to essentially kill it by like unsummoning it, which is awkward.
It feels like a problem that it doesn't like her.
Yeah, and like Silas goes on to apologize for the reaction, and they chalk up this reaction to the fact that like Rena shares the same power as Amre, and so the stag like recognized that and thus interpreted her as a problem. Fine. So then Rena shares that she doesn't like to use her magic because she has bad memories associated with it. She also has poor control over it, and it's associated with only her anger. When Silas pushes her about what her mother was like in foster care, she tells him that it's been a long day and she doesn't want to dive into it. So he takes her home on his bike. When they get to Callias' house, Kel is waiting outside like some kind of weird overprotective dad. And when
Creeper.
Silas calls him out on that, Kel even says out loud, quote, "I'm not her keeper." And I'm like, okay, then why are you standing in the driveway like a fucking creep?
Like cleaning your shotgun, waiting for her to come home on this guy's motorbike.
Dude. So just as Rena is going inside, we see this interaction. Quote, "But before I could walk past him to head inside, Silas grabbed my hand. It felt rude not to acknowledge Silas, so I faced him and smiled politely." End quote. And I picked this out because it's illustrative of how passive Rena is in this whole book. Like, things happen to her. There's not a lot of examples of where she takes agency. Like, even in the example of going with Silas on his bike, like, Silas showed up and pressured her into doing that. And then she was like, okay, sounds good.
Yeah, and I feel like she really only went because it was kind of alluded that Kel would be mad about it. So she did it like out of some weird spite.
Right.
It does. That was one of my biggest complaints, is that things just happen to her. Like even this, he grabs your hand and it felt rude not to acknowledge that.
Right. Like, why even say that? Just say like you looked at him.
Yeah, you don't have to defend yourself to me.
Yeah, you don't have to caveat
I think it's weird anyway. Yeah,
Right.
It's okay.
So Silas asks to take Rena out again, and she says, look, right now is really not a good time. And he accepts that means he has opportunity in the future and drives away. And that, gentle reader, is where we are going to end part 1 of our coverage. We got some wild stuff happening in part 2. So join us in 2 weeks for that. And then 2 weeks after that, we're going to publish our interview with Mina Brower. So that does it. Thank you for joining us on our journey of part 1 coverage of The God of Moonlight and Stardust by Mina Brower. Let us know what you thought on the socials. You can find us on Goodreads and TikTok at Spice Readers Pod. And you know that if you want more, you can find us over on Patreon, where only $3 a month will get you an extra episode every week. And if you really, really like us, drop us a review wherever you listen. But until then, we'll see ya. Bye.
Bye.